The ballroom fell silent. Every conversation, every clink of champagne glasses, every whisper, all of it stopped. 200 of Chicago's wealthiest elite turned to stare at the woman standing before them. Not at her gown, not at her jewelry, but at her stained apron and scuffed shoes. Janelle Brooks stood frozen at the edge of a Steinway grand piano, worth more than she'd earn in 10 years of waiting tables. Her hands trembled at her sides. The crystal chandeliers above cast harsh shadows across her dark skin, making every bead of sweat on her forehead visible to the crowd. Victoria Ashford, draped in diamonds and designer silk, stood just 10 feet away with her arms crossed and a cruel smile playing at her lips. "Well," Victoria's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "You said you could play. So play. Show all of us what a waitress knows about music." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Uncomfortable, mocking, anticipatory. Janelle's heart hammered against her ribs. This was a mistake. She should walk away. She should apologize. She should disappear into the kitchen and never come back out. But then she thought of her daughter. 5-year-old Maya, asleep back in their cramped apartment, who asked every single day when she could learn piano. Maya, who deserved to see her mother be brave. Janelle took one step forward, then another. Her worn sneakers made no sound against the marble floor. What happened next would change everything. The alarm went off at 5 in the morning like it did every single day. Janelle's hand shot out from under the thin blanket, silencing the shrill beeping before it could wake Maya. The apartment was dark, cold. The radiator hadn't worked properly in 3 months, and the landlord kept promising to fix it next week. Next week. Always next week. Janelle slipped out of bed and padded quietly across the worn carpet to the kitchen, if you could call it that. More like a corner with a hot plate and a mini fridge that buzzed too loud. She filled the electric kettle, the only luxury she'd allowed herself after last year's tax return, and waited for the water to boil. Through the thin walls, she could hear Mr. Patterson next door coughing. Janelle checked her phone. One notification. A text from the landlord: "Rent is 3 days late. Need payment by Friday, or I'll have to start eviction proceedings." Her stomach twisted. She knew exactly how much was in her checking account. $247. Rent was $950. Even with tonight's charity gala shift, which promised good tips from Chicago's wealthiest, she'd still be short. The kettle whistled softly. Janelle poured the hot water over the cheap instant coffee, watching the brown crystals dissolve. She didn't even like coffee, but she needed it. 2 jobs, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Mama Janelle turned to see Maya standing in the doorway of their shared bedroom, rubbing her eyes. Her daughter's hair stuck up in every direction, and she clutched her stuffed elephant, the one Janelle had found at a thrift store 2 years ago. "Hey baby, it's early. Go back to sleep." But Maya padded over and wrapped her small arms around Janelle's waist. "I had a dream about piano lessons again." Janelle's chest tightened. Every day, every single day, Maya asked about piano lessons. And every day, Janelle had to find a new way to say no without breaking her daughter's heart. "Soon, baby, I promise. As soon as Mama gets a little more money saved up. But when Kayla at school started lessons, she gets to play real songs now." Janelle knelt down, bringing herself eye level with her daughter. "I know, sweetheart. And you will too. You just have to be patient a little longer. Mama's working on it." Maya's bottom lip quivered, but she nodded. She was used to waiting. Used to soon, and maybe next month, and we'll see. After Maya went back to bed, Janelle stood at the kitchen counter and allowed herself one moment, just one, to remember. To remember what it felt like to sit at a piano, to feel the keys under her fingers, to lose herself completely in music. 10 years. It had been 10 years since she'd played. 10 years since she'd been someone else entirely. Janelle Brooks, Juilliard scholarship recipient, rising star. The girl from Mississippi everyone said would play Carnegie Hall someday. That girl was gone now. Janelle finished her coffee, got dressed in her black pants and white button-up shirt, her waitress uniform, and quietly left the apartment at 6:30. The Grand Meridian Hotel was an hour away by bus and train. If she was lucky, she'd get there by 7:45. Just enough time to help set up for tonight's gala before her shift officially started at 8. The November wind bit at her face as she walked to the bus stop. Chicago in winter was brutal, but Janelle had learned to endure. She'd learned to endure a lot of things. The Grand Meridian Hotel rose 27 stories into the Chicago skyline, all glass and steel and old money. Janelle had been working there for 3 years, ever since she'd moved from her last waitressing job at a diner on the South Side. The pay was better here. The tips were better. But the expectations were crushing. She entered through the service entrance, swiping her employee badge and nodding to Carlos, the security guard who'd worked there for 15 years. "Big night tonight," Janelle Carlos said. "Heard they're expecting over 200 guests. Some real heavy hitters." "Yeah, I heard. Annual charity gala, right? Yep. Mrs. Ashford's pet project. Music education for underprivileged children." He said it with just enough irony that Janelle caught his meaning. Everyone who worked at the hotel knew Victoria Ashford's charity work was more about the photo opportunities than actually helping anyone. Janelle made her way down the stark white corridor to the staff locker room. She stashed her coat and bag, checked her appearance in the mirror, pulled her hair back tighter, made sure her shirt was perfectly pressed, and headed upstairs to the grand ballroom. The transformation was already underway. The ballroom, which could hold 500 people comfortably, had been converted into something out of a fairy tale. Or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. Ice sculptures. Floral arrangements that probably cost more than Janelle's monthly rent. Tables draped in silk, each place setting featuring china that staff had been warned multiple times was irreplaceable. And at the far end of the ballroom, on a raised platform surrounded by more flowers, sat a Steinway Model D concert, grand piano. Black, gleaming, perfect. Janelle stopped walking. She couldn't help it. She just stood there staring at the instrument like it was a ghost from another lifetime. Her fingers flexed unconsciously at her side's muscle memory, trying to remember the feel of ivory and ebony keys. "Brooks, stop standing around daydreaming." Janelle jumped. Mr. Brennan, the hotel's floor manager, strode toward her with a clipboard and a permanent scowl. He was a thin man in his 50s, all sharp angles and sharper words. "Sorry, Mr. Brennan. I don't pay you to just anything. I need you in the kitchen prepping appetizer trays. Now." "Yes, sir?" Janelle forced herself to look away from the piano and followed Mr. Brennan through the ballroom. As they walked, he rattled off instructions. "Tonight is crucial. Mrs. Ashford specifically requested our best staff. That means you need to be invisible, efficient, and perfect. No mistakes, no spills, no drawing attention to yourself. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "Mrs. Ashford has very high standards. She's married to the hotel owner, which means she essentially runs this place. If she's unhappy, I'm unhappy." "If I'm unhappy, I understand, Mr. Brennan." He stopped and turned to face her. Because last month at the Morrison wedding, you were seen chatting with guests. They asked me about the menu. You were just doing more than your job requires. Tonight you speak only when spoken to. You serve, you clear, you disappear. Got it. Janelle swallowed her pride. Got it. Good. Now get to work. The next several hours passed in a blur of activity. Janelle helped arrange hundreds of appetizer trays, smoked salmon on crackers, caviar garnishes, stuffed mushrooms, shrimp cocktails, food she could never afford to eat herself, prepared for people who probably wouldn't even finish half of it. By 4 o'clock, the kitchen was chaos. The head chef was screaming in French. 2 line cooks were arguing about plating techniques. The pastry chef was having a meltdown because one of her sugar sculptures had cracked. Janelle kept her head down and worked. At 5:30, Mr. Susan Brennan gathered all the serving staff for a final briefing. There were 12 of them tonight, all dressed identically, all trained to blend into the background. Remember, Brennan said, his voice sharp enough to cut glass, tonight's guests are the wealthiest and most influential people in Chicago. Treat every single one of them like royalty. Smile, but not too much. Make eye contact, but don't stare. Be attentive without being intrusive. And for the love of God, do not drop anything. Janelle glanced at the other servers. Most of them looked terrified. She didn't blame them. At 6 o'clock, the guests began arriving. Janelle stood at her assigned station near the north entrance of the ballroom, holding a tray of champagne flutes. Her arms already ached, but the night had barely begun. She watched as Chicago's elite filtered in, dripping with wealth and self-importance. Designer gowns in every color, tuxedos that probably cost more than her car if she'd had a car, jewelry that caught the light and threw it back in blinding flashes. These people existed in a world Janelle could barely imagine. A world where $950 wasn't 3 months of scraping and saving. It was a Tuesday afternoon shopping trip. Champagne. She offered her tray to a couple in their 60s. The woman took a glass without even looking at Janelle. The man grabbed 2. Janelle continued circulating, offering drinks, smiling politely, disappearing back into the kitchen when her tray was empty and returning with a full one. Invisible, just like Brennan wanted. At 7:15, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations paused. Heads turned toward the main entrance. Victoria Ashford had arrived. She was tall, maybe 5'10", in heels, with the kind of bone structure that suggested expensive genetics and even more expensive maintenance. Her blonde hair was swept up in an elaborate updo. Her gown was silver, shimmering like liquid mercury, with a neckline that plunged dramatically. Diamonds circled her throat, her wrists, her fingers. But it wasn't her appearance that commanded attention. It was her presence. Victoria Ashford walked like someone who owned not just the room, but everyone in it. Her husband, Richard Ashford, followed a step behind. He was older than her by at least 15 years, gray-haired and distinguished with the weary expression of a man who'd long ago stopped trying to control his wife. Darling Victoria's voice carried across the ballroom. She air-kissed 3 different women in rapid succession, each greeting more theatrical than the last. "Jennifer, you look absolutely radiant. Is that Valentino, Patricia? I love what you've done with your hair. Michelle, we simply must have lunch next week." Janelle watched from her position near the wall. There was something fascinating about Victoria Ashford, something magnetic and terrible at the same time. Like watching a beautiful storm roll in. You knew it would destroy everything in its path, but you couldn't look away. Victoria moved through the crowd, greeting guests, laughing at jokes, touching arms and shoulders with practiced familiarity. And everywhere she went, people smiled, complimented her, told her how wonderful she looked, how amazing the gala was, how generous she was to organize such an important event. Janelle wondered if any of them actually liked her, or if they were all just afraid. At 7:45, Victoria stepped up to a microphone at the front of the ballroom. The crowd quieted. All eyes turned to her. "Good evening, everyone," Victoria began, her voice smooth and polished. "Thank you all so much for being here tonight. As you know, the cause we're supporting this evening is incredibly close to my heart. Music education for underprivileged children." She paused for applause. It came warm and enthusiastic. "I believe that every child, regardless of their background or economic circumstances, deserves the opportunity to experience the transformative power of music. Art shouldn't be a luxury. It should be a birthright." More applause. Janelle shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Her feet were already starting to hurt. "Tonight we have a very special treat," Victoria continued. "Maestro Daniel Reed, one of the world's most celebrated pianists, has graciously agreed to perform for us. Let's give him a warm welcome." The crowd erupted. Janelle turned to see a man in his early 60s walking toward the piano. He had silver hair, elegant features, and the bearing of someone who'd spent his entire life on concert stages around the world. Maestro Reed took his seat at the Steinway. The room fell silent. And then he began to play. Janelle wasn't prepared for it. Wasn't prepared for how it would feel to hear live piano music for the first time in 10 years. The melody flowed out across the ballroom, each note perfect, each phrase breathtaking. He was playing Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most difficult pieces in the classical repertoire, and he made it sound effortless. Janelle's chest tightened, her eyes burned. She stood frozen at her station champagne tray, forgotten, completely transported. For 3 minutes and 47 seconds, she wasn't a waitress anymore. She was 18 again, sitting in a practice room at Juilliard, believing that anything was possible. The music ended. The crowd applauded, and Janelle was back in her stained apron holding a tray invisible. It happened at 8:17. Janelle was carrying a tray of fresh champagne glasses through the crowd when someone bumped into her from behind. Hard. The tray tilted. Janelle lunged to correct it, but it was too late. One glass toppled champagne, arcing through the air in a golden spray. It landed directly on Victoria Ashford's silver gown. Time stopped. The champagne spread across the fabric like a stain on fresh snow. Victoria looked down at her dress, then up at Janelle. Her expression transformed from surprise to fury in less than a second. "You clumsy idiot!" Victoria's voice cracked like a whip across the ballroom. Conversations died. Everyone turned to look. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Ashford. I didn't. Someone bumped me, and I don't care what happened. Look what you've done." Victoria held out her arms, displaying the damage. "This gown is Givenchy. Do you have any idea how much this costs?" Janelle's face burned. 200 people were staring at her. "I'm so sorry. Let me help you. Help me. Help me." Victoria's laugh was cruel. "You've done enough." "God, how did someone like you even get hired here, Richard?" She turned to her husband. "Richard, I want her fired. Immediately." Richard Ashford stepped forward, uncomfortable. "Victoria, it was an accident. I don't care if it was an accident. I want her gone." Mr. Brennan materialized beside Janelle, his face pale. "Mrs. Ashford, I sincerely apologize. This is completely unacceptable. I assure you there will be consequences." "There better be." Victoria's eyes were ice cold as she looked at Janelle. "What's your name, Janelle Brooks?" "Well, Janelle Brooks, I hope you enjoyed your last night working here. Because you're finished. Do you understand finished?" Janelle wanted to defend herself, wanted to explain that someone had pushed her, that it wasn't her fault. But she'd learned over 10 years of working service jobs that defending yourself only made things worse. So she did what she'd been trained to do. "I'm very sorry, Mrs. Ashford. It won't happen again." "You're right. It won't. Because you won't be here." Victoria turned to Brennan. "Get her out of my sight." Brennan grabbed Janelle's arm. "Kitchen. Now." He dragged her through the crowd, past the staring faces, past the whispers. Janelle kept her head down, humiliation burning through her veins like acid. In the kitchen, Brennan released her arm and turned on her. "What the hell were you thinking?" "I wasn't. Someone bumped into me. I don't want to hear excuses. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Mrs. Ashford wants you fired. But it was an accident. I don't care. That woman owns this hotel. If she wants you gone, you're gone." Brennan paced back and forth, hands on his head. Damn it, I should fire you right now." Janelle's heart dropped into her stomach. "Please, Mr. Brennan, please. I need this job. I have a daughter. I can't lose this job. You should have thought about that before you..." He stopped, took a breath, looked at her with something almost like pity. "Look, I'm not firing you tonight. We're short-staffed as it is, and I can't afford to lose another server mid-event. But after tonight, we're done. You're done. Understand?" Tears pricked at Janelle's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Yes, sir. Get cleaned up. Stay in the kitchen for the next 30 minutes. And when you do go back out there, stay as far away from Mrs. Ashford as humanly possible." "Yes, sir." Brennan left. Janelle stood alone in the industrial kitchen, surrounded by the chaos of food preparation, and finally allowed one tear to slip down her cheek. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Not now. Not when she was already behind on rent. Not when Maya needed so many things Janelle couldn't provide. But she also knew how this worked. Victoria Ashford had decided Janelle was worthless. And in Victoria's world, that meant Janelle was worthless. Janelle stayed in this kitchen for 40 minutes, helping the dishwashing crew, even though that wasn't her job. She needed something to do. Something to keep her hands busy, and her mind from spiraling. At 9 o'clock, she finally returned to the ballroom. The gala was in full swing. Dinner had been served. The lights had been dimmed slightly, creating an intimate atmosphere. Maestro Reed was performing again this time, playing something softer, gentler. Debussy, maybe? Janelle took up a position at the back of the room near the service entrance. From here, she could watch the crowd without being noticed. Watch Victoria Ashford hold court at the center table, still in her champagne-stained gown, telling the story of the incompetent waitress to anyone who would listen. But Janelle couldn't focus on Victoria. Her attention was drawn inevitably to the piano. Maestro Reed's fingers moved across the keys with the kind of fluid grace that only came from decades of practice. Every note was intentional. Every phrase told a story. The music wrapped around Janelle like a warm blanket, like a memory of home. She closed her eyes and listened. In her mind, she wasn't standing in a ballroom anymore. She was 19 years old, performing at her Juilliard recital. She could feel the weight of the piano keys under her fingers, could hear her professor's voice. Music isn't about technical perfection, Janelle. It's about truth. It's about letting people feel what you feel. She'd understood that once, had lived it, and then life had happened. Tragedy had happened. And music had become something she used to do in a life she used to have. Beautiful, isn't it? Janelle's eyes snapped open. A man stood beside her, tall, maybe 6 feet, with dark hair graying at the temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a well-tailored tuxedo, but somehow managed to look comfortable in it. "Yes," Janelle said quietly. "It's beautiful." "You're really listening," the man observed. "Most people here are just using the music as background noise for their conversations. But you're actually listening." Janelle wasn't sure how to respond to that. Was this guy hitting on her? Was this some kind of test? "I love music," she said carefully. "I can tell." He extended his hand. "Thomas Hart." She shook it. "Janelle Brooks. Nice to meet you, Janelle. Are you a musician?" The question hit her like a physical blow. I was, a long time ago." "What happened? Life." She gave him a small, sad smile. "Life happened." Thomas nodded like he understood. "I hear that. I wanted to be a painter once. Ended up as an architect instead. Still gets to be creative, but it's not the same, you know." "Yeah, I know." They stood in silence for a moment, listening to Maestro Reed play. There was something comfortable about Thomas Hart. Something safe. He didn't look at her like she was invisible. Didn't look at her like she was beneath him. "It's never too late," Thomas said eventually. "To go back to music, I mean. If you wanted to." Janelle laughed, but there was no humor in it. "It's too late for me. I'm too old, too far removed. And I have other responsibilities now." "How old are you, 28? Thomas raised an eyebrow. 28 is too old. Janelle Vera Wang didn't design her first dress until she was 40. Julia Child didn't write her first cookbook until she was 50. Colonel Sanders didn't start KFC until he was 62. That's different. How? Because they had money, resources, support. I have a 5-year-old daughter and $950 in rent I can't pay. She hadn't meant to say that. Hadn't meant to reveal anything personal to this stranger. But something about the way he listened, really listened, made the words spill out. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. That's a heavy burden to carry alone. It's my burden. No one else's. Maybe. But that doesn't mean people can't help carry it sometimes. Before Janelle could respond, a sharp voice cut through their conversation. "Thomas, there you are." Victoria Ashford glided toward them, her champagne-stained gown apparently forgotten, now that she'd had several glasses of wine. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with alcohol and malice. "I've been looking everywhere for you," Victoria purred, sliding her arm through Thomas's. Then she noticed Janelle. Her expression curdled. "Oh, it's you. I thought I told Brennan to keep you away from the guests." "I was just..." Janelle started. "I don't care what you were doing. You need to get back to work. And Thomas, darling, you really shouldn't waste your time talking to the help. Come on, there's someone I want you to meet." Victoria tugged Thomas away. He glanced back at Janelle with an apologetic expression, but he went. Of course he did. They all did. Because at the end of the day, people like Thomas Hart and Victoria Ashford existed in one world, and people like Janelle existed in another. And those worlds were never supposed to touch. Janelle took a shaky breath and retreated back into the shadows. 20 minutes later, Janelle was clearing empty plates from the abandoned tables when Thomas found her again. "I'm sorry about that," he said quietly. "Victoria can be a lot." Janelle kept working, stacking plates with practiced efficiency. "You don't need to apologize. She's your friend. She's not my friend. Her husband hired my firm to design a hotel expansion. I'm here because it's a business obligation, not because I want to be. Still, you don't owe me anything." Thomas moved around to face her, forcing her to look at him. "Earlier when you said you used to be a musician, what did you play piano?" His eyes widened. "Seriously? Seriously? That's... wow. Okay, so why aren't you playing anymore? Janelle set down the plates with more force than she intended. Because I don't have a piano, Mr. Hart. I don't have money for lessons or sheet music or concert tickets. I don't have time to practice because I work 2 jobs. And I don't have the luxury of pursuing dreams that don't pay the bills. Does that answer your question? She expected him to back away. Expected him to make some excuse and leave. Rich people didn't like it when poor people got honest about being poor. It made them uncomfortable. But Thomas didn't leave. He just looked at her with those kind eyes and said, "What if I could help? I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's... Look, I run a non-profit on the side. We provide arts education to underserved communities, music lessons, art supplies, that kind of thing. And we're always looking for instructors. If you wanted to teach piano, we could pay you. Not a fortune, but something. And you'd have access to our studio space. You could practice." Janelle stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "You don't even know me. Because I heard the way you listened to that music. And because I know what it's like to give up something you love, because life gets in the way. And because..." He paused. "Because I think you deserve better than this." Her throat tightened. "I can't. I'm about to lose this job. I can't afford to take any risks right now. Then don't think of it as a risk. Think of it as an option. Here." Thomas pulled out a business card and pressed it into her hand. "My number. If you change your mind. Thomas." Victoria's voice rang out across the ballroom. "Stop flirting with the staff and get over here." Thomas winced. "I should go. But seriously, Janelle, call me." He walked away before she could respond. Janelle looked down at the business card in her hand. Thomas Hart, Hart and Associates, Architecture and Community Development. She slipped the card into her apron pocket and went back to clearing plates. By 10 o'clock, Victoria Ashford was drunk. Not falling down drunk, not slurring her words drunk, but drunk enough that her filter had completely disappeared. Drunk enough that every cruel thought that crossed her mind came straight out of her mouth. Janelle was serving coffee and dessert when Victoria called out to her. "You waitress. Come here." Janelle's stomach clenched, but she obeyed. Yes, Mrs. Ashford Victoria was seated at a table with 6 other women, all of them dressed in gowns that cost more than Janelle's annual salary. They looked at Janelle the way someone might look at an insect with mild disgust and the faint urge to squash it. "My friends and I were just having a discussion," Victoria said, swirling the wine in her glass. "We're talking about ambition, drive, success. And I'm curious, what are your ambitions, Janelle Brooks?" It was a trap. Janelle knew it was a trap. But what choice did she have? "I want to provide a good life for my daughter, ma'am." How noble, Victoria said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "But I mean real ambitions, career goals, dreams. Or is this it for you? Are you going to be serving drinks for the rest of your life?" One of the other women, a brunette with too much Botox, laughed. "Victoria, stop. You're being mean." "I'm not being mean. I'm being honest. Look, I'm sure you're very good at what you do." Victoria gestured vaguely at Janelle. "But don't you want more? Don't you want to be something I am something?" Janelle said quietly. "I'm a mother. Besides that." Janelle could feel her hands starting to shake. "With all due respect, Mrs. Ashford, I don't think my career goals are any of your business." The table went silent. Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Excuse me," I said. "I heard what you said. And you're right. Your career goals aren't my business. Because frankly, I don't think you have any. I think you're exactly where you're always going to be, serving people who are better than you." Another woman at the table, an older socialite named Mrs. Pemberton, leaned forward. "Victoria's right, you know. Some people are just meant to serve. It's not a judgment, it's just reality. Not everyone can be exceptional." Janelle's vision blurred with tears, but she refused to let them fall. "May I be excused, Mrs. Ashford?" "No, you may not." Victoria stood up, swaying slightly. "You know what your problem is? You have no vision, no drive. You're content with mediocrity. And that's fine for you, I suppose. But don't pretend you're anything special. Don't pretend you deserve more than this." Victoria. A man's voice, firm and disapproving. Richard Ashford appeared beside the table. "That's enough. I'm just having a conversation. You're being cruel. Stop." Victoria rolled her eyes but sat back down. "Fine, whatever. Go away, waitress. You're depressing me." Janelle walked away on trembling legs. She made it to the service corridor before the tears finally came. She leaned against the wall, pressing her palms against her eyes, trying desperately to hold herself together. She was so tired. Tired of being treated like she didn't matter. Tired of working herself to death just to stay poor. Tired of watching her daughter grow up in poverty while rich people threw money away on parties and designer gowns. "Hey, you okay?" Janelle looked up. Thomas stood a few feet away, concern written all over his face. "I'm fine." "You're not fine." "I heard what Victoria said. She's drunk and she's awful, and you didn't deserve that." "Doesn't matter what I deserve. This is my life. It doesn't have to be." "Yes, it does." The words burst out of her louder than she intended. "This is exactly what my life has to be, because I don't have any other options. I can't just quit and chase dreams and hope everything works out. I have a kid depending on me. I have rent to pay and groceries to buy, and..." Her voice broke. "And I'm so tired of people like you telling me it doesn't have to be this way, because it does. It absolutely does." Thomas didn't argue. He just stood there letting her have her anger. After a moment, Janelle wiped her eyes and took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. That wasn't fair. You don't need to apologize. I should get back to work." Janelle. "I really need to get back to work, Mr. Hart." She walked away before he could say anything else. At 10:30, Maestro Daniel Reed finished his final performance of the evening. The crowd gave him a standing ovation, and he took his bows with practiced grace. He stepped away from the piano, accepting congratulations and handshakes from the guests. The Steinway sat empty on its platform, gleaming under the lights. Victoria Ashford, now thoroughly drunk and clearly bored, stood up and addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, since our wonderful Maestro Reed has finished his performance, I thought we might open up the piano for anyone else who'd like to play. Any volunteers?" There was nervous laughter. A few people shook their heads. Playing after Maestro Reed would be like singing after Pavarotti. No one wanted to embarrass themselves. "Come on," Victoria coaxed. "Surely someone here knows how to play." "What about you, Jennifer? Didn't you take lessons as a child?" "God, no." Jennifer laughed. "I can barely play chopsticks." Thomas. "You're creative. Give it a try." Thomas held up his hands. "I don't play piano, Victoria." Victoria's eyes scanned the room, and then, as if guided by some malicious instinct, they landed on Janelle. A slow smile spread across Victoria's face. "What about you?" she called out. "Waitress Janelle. Didn't you say earlier that you used to play?" Janelle froze. Every head in the ballroom turned to look at her. That's not what I... Oh, come on. Don't be modest." Victoria's voice was sickeningly sweet. "You told Thomas you were a musician. Here's your chance to prove it. Come on up and play something for us." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people looked curious. Others looked uncomfortable. Everyone looked entertained. Mrs. Ashford. "I don't think..." "What's wrong?" "Stage fright?" Victoria laughed. Or maybe you lied about being a musician. Maybe you just wanted attention from Thomas. That's not... Then play. If you really were a musician, this should be easy for you. Unless... Victoria paused dramatically. Unless you can't actually play at all. Janelle's heart hammered against her ribs. This was humiliation. Pure, calculated humiliation. Victoria wanted her to fail in front of everyone. Wanted to prove that Janelle was nothing. She should walk away. Should refuse. Should maintain what little dignity she had left. But then she looked across the room and saw Maya's face in her mind. Saw her daughter asking every single day when she could learn piano. Saw her daughter growing up believing that dreams were for other people. That some people were meant to serve and some people were meant to shine, and you didn't get to choose which one you were born to be. And something inside Janelle snapped. She'd spent 10 years being invisible, being silent, being grateful for whatever scraps rich people threw her way. She'd swallowed her pride and her anger and her grief because that's what survival required. But Victoria Ashford had pushed too far. "Okay," Janelle heard herself say. "I'll play." The room went silent. Victoria's smile widened. "Wonderful. Everyone give our waitress a round of applause as she makes a complete fool of herself." Laughter. Scattered applause. Cruel anticipation. Janelle set down her serving tray. Her hands were shaking, but she forced herself to walk forward. Every step felt like walking through deep water. The crowd parted for her, their eyes following her movement. Thomas caught her arm as she passed. "You don't have to do this," he whispered urgently. "I know. She's trying to humiliate you. I know that too." Then why Janelle looked at him. "Because I'm tired of being invisible." She pulled her arm free and continued walking. The platform, the steps, the piano. Janelle stood before the Steinway, her worn sneakers looking absurd next to the polished wood. Her stained apron contrasted sharply with the elegant surroundings. She looked exactly like what she was, a waitress who didn't belong here. But when she sat down on the bench and placed her fingers on the keys, something shifted. The piano didn't care that she was poor, didn't care that she was wearing a uniform, didn't care that she'd been invisible for 10 years. The piano only cared if she could play. Janelle closed her eyes, and after a decade of silence, she began. Janelle Brooks was 7 years old when her grandmother first put her in front of a piano. It was an old, upright, out of tune, and missing 3 keys sitting in the corner of her grandmother's living room in Tupelo, Mississippi. The house smelled like cornbread and old wood, and Janelle's mother was working her second shift at the chicken processing plant. "Go on," her grandmother had said. "Touch it. It won't bite." Janelle had pressed 1 key, then another, and something inside her had woken up something she hadn't known was sleeping. Within a month, she could play simple melodies by ear. Within 6 months, she'd taught herself 3 hymns. By the time she was 8, the church organist was giving her free lessons in exchange for help with the children's choir. By 10, she was playing at church every Sunday. By 12, she'd won her first competition, a statewide contest that earned her a scholarship to a summer music program in Memphis. By 14, her piano teacher told her mother, "Your daughter has something special, something rare. She could go all the way. To Janelle, that meant Juilliard, Carnegie Hall, concert tours. Everything that felt impossible for a black girl from Mississippi whose mother worked 18-hour days and whose father was a ghost who'd left before she was born. But her teachers believed, her church believed, her community believed. When she was 16, Janelle traveled to New York for the Juilliard audition. She'd never been on a plane before. had never been north of Tennessee. Everything about New York was overwhelming: the buildings, the people, the noise, the wealth, the art. She played Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor for her audition. Played it like her life depended on it. Because it did. 3 weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived. Full scholarship. Room and board included. Her mother had cried. Her grandmother had cried. The whole church had cried and thrown her a going-away party and prayed over her and told her she was going to make them all proud. And she had. For 2 years, she'd worked harder than she'd ever worked in her life. Practiced 6 hours a day, took every master class, performed at every recital. Her professors said she had raw talent, rough around the edges, but undeniable. With time and training, she could be great. Janelle was 19 when her mother called at 3 in the morning. "Baby, it's Mama. I need you to come home. It's Grandma. She had a stroke." Janelle got on the first bus to Mississippi, her heart in her throat. She told her professors it would just be a few days, a week at most, just until things stabilized. But things didn't stabilize. Her grandmother had been the one taking care of Janelle's mother, who'd developed diabetes and could barely afford her insulin. With her grandmother in the hospital, unconscious tubes and machines keeping her alive, someone needed to take care of her mother. Janelle stayed in Mississippi. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Her professors called. Her advisor called. They were understanding at first. Family emergencies happened. But eventually the conversations changed. "Janelle, we need to know if you're coming back. You're going to lose your scholarship if you miss another semester." "I know. I just need a little more time." "We don't have more time. You need to make a decision." Janelle sat in the hospital room with her grandmother. This woman who'd first put her hands on a piano, who'd believed in her before anyone else did, and she made her choice. She withdrew from Juilliard. Her grandmother died 3 weeks later. Her mother's health continued to decline. And Janelle stayed in Mississippi, working at a diner, taking care of her mother, watching her dreams slip further and further away. Then she met Marcus, sweet, charming Marcus, who told her she was beautiful and special and deserved better than Mississippi. Marcus, who promised her the world and gave her a daughter instead. Maya was born when Janelle was 22. Marcus left when Maya was 6 months old. Janelle's mother passed away when Maya was 2. And suddenly Janelle was 24 years old, alone with a toddler, and no money, and no degree, and no future. She moved to Chicago because someone told her there were more jobs there. Found a cheap apartment. Found work as a waitress. And the piano became something she used to do. In another life. When she'd been someone else. The worst part wasn't giving up Juilliard. It wasn't even giving up the dream of performing. The worst part was the silence. Janelle had lived with music her entire life. In Mississippi, there'd always been a piano somewhere at church, at her grandmother's house, at her teacher's studio. Music had been as essential as breathing. But in Chicago, there was nothing. She couldn't afford a piano, couldn't afford lessons, couldn't afford to even think about music when she was working 2 jobs just to keep Maya fed. For the first few years, she'd tried to maintain the connection. She'd go to the public library and watch recordings of concerts online. She'd stand outside music stores and listen to customers test out keyboards. She'd close her eyes at night and play entire concertos in her mind, her fingers moving against the mattress. But gradually, even that faded. Because holding on to a dream you couldn't reach was like holding on to broken glass. It just made you bleed. By the time Maya was 4, Janelle had convinced herself she was over it. The piano was her past. Her present was waitressing and survival. And that was okay. That was fine. Some people got to pursue their dreams, and some people had to be practical. Except Maya kept asking about piano lessons, kept humming melodies and tapping rhythms on tables, and asking if Mommy could teach her to play. And every time Maya asked, it was like someone was twisting a knife in Janelle's chest, because she wanted to teach her daughter, wanted to share that gift, wanted Maya to experience the magic of creating music, of feeling keys respond to your touch, of losing yourself completely in sound. But she couldn't, because she didn't have a piano, didn't have money for lessons, didn't have anything except exhaustion and debt and the crushing weight of survival. So when Victoria Ashford stood in that ballroom and asked if Janelle could play, it wasn't just a challenge. It was a doorway back to everything she'd lost. Janelle sat at the Steinway, her hands trembling above the keys. The ballroom was completely silent. 200 people watching, waiting, expecting her to fail. Victoria Ashford stood with her arms crossed, that cruel smile still on her face. Thomas Hart stood near the back, his expression worried but hopeful. Maestro Daniel Reed watched from his seat, curiosity evident in his eyes. And Janelle was about to touch a piano for the first time in 10 years. Her heart hammered so loud she could hear it in her ears. Her palms were sweating. What if she'd forgotten? What if 10 years was too long? What if her muscle memory was gone? What if she sat down and nothing happened, and she proved Victoria right, proved that she was nothing nobody, a waitress who should know her place? But then she thought about Maya, about her daughter's face when she asked about piano lessons, about the way Maya's eyes lit up when she heard music. And she thought about her grandmother, about those first lessons in that tiny living room in Mississippi, about the way her grandmother had said, "You have a gift, baby. Don't you ever let anyone convince you otherwise." And she thought about herself, about the girl she used to be, the one who believed anything was possible, the one who wasn't afraid. Maybe that girl was still in there somewhere. Maybe she'd just been sleeping. Janelle took a deep breath, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play Clair de Lune. The first note was uncertain, soft, trembling, but it was perfect. The second note came easier, then the third, then the fourth. And suddenly, it was like the last 10 years had never happened. Her hands remembered. Her body remembered. Every hour she'd spent practicing, every lesson, every recital, every moment she'd ever spent at a piano came flooding back. The melody flowed from her fingers like water. Debussy's masterpiece, dreamy and melancholic and achingly beautiful. Janelle didn't think about technique, didn't think about the crowd, didn't think about anything except the music. She played the opening section perfectly, each note crystalline and clear. The ballroom's acoustics were incredible, carrying every nuance of sound to every corner of the room. And the crowd began to realize she wasn't just good, she was exceptional. Victoria's smile started to fade. Thomas leaned forward, riveted. Maestro Reed's eyes widened. Janelle's eyes were closed now, tears streaming down her cheeks as she played. This wasn't just a piano performance. This was 10 years of grief and loss and survival pouring out through her fingertips. This was her grandmother and her mother and her daughter and every dream she'd buried and every part of herself she'd locked away. She transitioned from the gentle opening into the more dramatic middle section, her hands moving across the keys with increasing confidence. The dynamics swelled soft to loud, gentle to passionate. Her whole body moved with the music swaying slightly, completely lost in the sound. The waitress uniform didn't matter anymore. The stained apron didn't matter. The fact that she was poor and black and supposedly invisible didn't matter. All that mattered was the music, and the music was extraordinary. Janelle finished Clair de Lune with a soft, haunting final chord that hung in the air like smoke. For 3 seconds, the ballroom was utterly silent. Then someone started to applaud. Then another person. Then another. But Janelle wasn't done. She didn't lift her hands from the keys. Instead, she transitioned seamlessly into something else. Something not written in any classical repertoire. She began to improvise. She started with a bluesy chord progression, her right hand picking out a melody that spoke of Mississippi nights and church pews and her grandmother's living room. Then she shifted into jazz, her fingers dancing across the keys in syncopated rhythms that made people's heads nod involuntarily. She took the classical training from Juilliard and mixed it with the blues she'd grown up with. Took Debussy and Chopin and merged them with gospel and jazz and soul. Created something that was entirely her own. The crowd was mesmerized. Victoria Ashford stood frozen, her face pale, her cruel smile completely gone. Thomas had moved closer, his mouth slightly open in amazement. Maestro Daniel Reed stood up from his seat, watching Janelle with an expression of pure astonishment. And Janelle played. She played like she was releasing 10 years of silence all at once. Played like music was oxygen, and she'd been suffocating. Played with technical precision and raw emotion in equal measure. Her improvisation built and built, growing more complex, more passionate. Her hands flew across the keys. Rapid runs up and down the piano. Thundering bass notes. Delicate treble melodies. Everything she'd learned. Everything she'd felt. Everything she was all of it pouring out. The music swelled to a crescendo that shook the crystal chandeliers. Then, just when it seemed like it couldn't get any more intense, Janelle brought it back down. Softened it, made it gentle again. She played a melody that sounded like a lullaby, like the song she sang to Maya every night, like a promise that everything would be okay. And then, with one final gentle chord, she stopped. Her hands stayed on the keys for a moment. Her head was bowed. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. The ballroom was dead silent. Then Maestro Daniel Reed started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster, then louder. Thomas joined him. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was on its feet, applauding thunderously. Not polite applause, not obligatory applause, but genuine, awed, overwhelming applause. Janelle lifted her head, tears streaming down her face, and looked out at the crowd. She couldn't quite process what was happening. This had to be a dream. Any second she'd wake up in her cramped apartment with Maya asking about breakfast. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. The standing ovation continued for nearly 2 full minutes. Janelle stood up from the piano bench on shaking legs, overwhelmed and disoriented. She'd forgotten what this felt like, the rush of performing, the connection with an audience, the pure cathartic release of making music. People were calling out to her. Incredible. Absolutely amazing. Who is she? Where did she learn to play like that? Maestro Reed was the first to reach the platform. He climbed the steps with surprising speed for a man in his 60s and took Janelle's hands in his. "My dear," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "That was one of the most extraordinary performances I've witnessed in 40 years of music." "Where did you train?" Janelle could barely speak. "Juilliard. But I only did 2 years. I had to drop out." Juilliard. Reed nodded slowly, like that explained everything. And you haven't played since? Not for 10 years. 10 years? He looked at her like she was a miracle. You haven't touched a piano in 10 years and you just did that. I guess so. That's not possible. He shook his head in disbelief. That's not humanly possible. The muscle memory alone should have atrophied. The technique should have deteriorated. But you played like she never stopped. Thomas finished appearing beside them. His eyes were bright with tears. Janelle, that was beautiful. That was beyond beautiful. Other guests crowded around, all wanting to congratulate her, to shake her hand, to understand who this waitress was who could play like an angel. But across the room, Victoria Ashford stood alone. Her face was a mask of fury and humiliation. She'd tried to embarrass Janelle, had tried to put her in her place, had tried to prove that some people were meant to serve and some people were meant to be served. And instead, she'd given Janelle a stage. Victoria's husband, Richard, approached her. That was extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. We should shut up, Victoria hissed. Just shut up. She stormed out of the ballroom, her silver gown swishing behind her. No one noticed. Everyone was too focused on Janelle. Maestro Reed gently guided Janelle away from the crowd to a quieter corner of the ballroom. Thomas followed, protective. I need to understand something, Reed said, his voice urgent. You said you dropped out of Juilliard. Why? Janelle took a shaky breath. My grandmother had a stroke. Then my mother got sick. I had to go home to Mississippi to take care of them. I couldn't afford to do both, stay in school and help my family. So I chose family, and after... Why didn't you go back? My grandmother died. My mother died. I had a daughter. I had bills. Life happened. Maestro Reed, music became a luxury I couldn't afford. Reed was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what I do besides perform? No, sir. I run a scholarship fund, the Reed Foundation for Exceptional Musicians. We provide full funding for talented artists who've had their careers interrupted by circumstance. We cover tuition, living expenses, instrument access, everything. We've helped 17 musicians in the past decade return to professional careers. Janelle's heart skipped. That's wonderful. I want to help you. She stared at him. I'm sorry, I want to offer you a place in our program. Full scholarship. You could return to Juilliard to complete your degree, or study privately with master instructors. Whatever you need. The foundation would cover your expenses, provide childcare support for your daughter, help you transition back into music full-time. Janelle felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. I can't. You have a gift, Janelle. The kind of gift that comes along once in a generation. And you've already lost 10 years to circumstances beyond your control. Don't lose any more. Let me help you. But I'm 28. I'm too old to start a professional career. I have a daughter who depends on me. I can't just... You're not too old. You're talented enough that age doesn't matter. And we provide family support specifically for situations like yours. You wouldn't have to choose between music and your daughter. You could have both. Tears welled up in Janelle's eyes again. Why? Why would you do this for me? Reed smiled gently. Because someone did it for me once. When I was 25, I was playing piano in a hotel bar to pay my rent. I thought my career was over before it started. Then a conductor heard me play and offered me a chance. Changed my entire life. I've been looking for ways to pay that forward ever since. Thomas squeezed Janelle's shoulder. You should say yes. But my job, my apartment, Are you happy? Thomas asked quietly. Working at the hotel, living paycheck to paycheck, is that what you want for yourself? For Maya, Janelle thought about her cramped apartment, about being 3 days late on rent, about coming home exhausted every night with nothing left to give her daughter, about Maya asking for piano lessons, and Janelle having to say no again and again and again. No, she whispered. I'm not happy. Then say yes, Reed urged. Take the chance. Let yourself dream again. Janelle looked at the piano, the beautiful Steinway that had been silent a few minutes ago, and was now the instrument of her transformation. She looked at the crowd of people who were still watching her, still talking about her performance. She looked at Thomas, who believed in her, at Maestro Reed, who was offering her a miracle. And she thought about Maya, about what she wanted to teach her daughter about life. Did she want to teach Maya to be practical, to play it safe, to give up on dreams because they were hard? Or did she want to teach Maya to be brave? Yes, Janelle said, her voice stronger now. Yes, I'll do it. I'll say yes. Reed's face lit up. Excellent. Excellent. We'll start the paperwork immediately. I'll have my assistant contact you tomorrow. We can begin as soon as… Excuse me. A sharp voice cut through their conversation. They turned to see Mr. Brennan, the hotel manager, standing behind them. His face was tight with barely controlled anger. Ms. Brooks, I need to speak with you. Now. Janelle's stomach dropped. She'd forgotten for a few blissful minutes that she was still technically an employee, that she was still in uniform, that she'd abandoned her serving duties to play piano. Mr. Brennan, I not here. His voice was ice. Service corridor. Now. Thomas stepped forward. Hold on. Janelle just gave an incredible performance. Surely you can. With all due respect, sir, this is between me and my employee. Actually, Maestro Reed said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being listened to, Ms. Brooks has just accepted a position with my foundation, which means she won't be your employee much longer. Brennan's jaw tightened. That's wonderful for her. But right now she's still on the clock, still in uniform, and still my responsibility. Ms. Brooks' service corridor. That's not a request. Janelle looked apologetically at Reed and Thomas. I'll be right back. She followed Brennan through the crowd, past the staring guests, back into the harsh fluorescent lighting of the service corridor. As soon as they were alone, Brennan exploded. What the hell was that, Mr. Brennan? Mrs. Ashford challenged me to. I don't care what Mrs. Ashford did. You abandoned your station. You left your tray in the middle of the ballroom. You made a spectacle of yourself in front of our most important guests. I played piano. That's all. That's all. Brennan laughed bitterly. You humiliated Victoria Ashford. Do you have any idea what that means for this hotel? For me, she called her husband 10 minutes ago, demanding that I fire you immediately. And she wants me fired too for hiring you in the first place. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to. Brennan's face was red now. You made me look incompetent. You made the hotel look like we don't properly vet our staff. And now I have to deal with the fallout. You were just trying to show off, to make yourself feel important, to prove some point about God, I don't even know what. But you didn't think about anyone but yourself. The unfairness of it hit Janelle like a slap. I didn't ask to be challenged. I didn't ask Victoria to put me on the spot. I was doing my job until she decided to humiliate me. And you could have walked away. You could have kept your head down like you're supposed to. Why? Why am I supposed to keep my head down? Because I'm a waitress. Because people like me are supposed to be invisible. Because that's the job. Brennan shouted. That's what service means. You're not here to be noticed. You're here to make the guests comfortable, to meet their needs, to blend into the background. That's what you're paid for. Then you don't pay me enough, Janelle shot back. You don't pay anyone enough to be treated the way Victoria Ashford treated me tonight, the way she treats everyone who works here. And if standing up for myself means I lose this job, then fine. I lose it. But I'm not going to apologize for refusing to be humiliated. Brennan stared at her, momentarily speechless. Then Richard Ashford's voice came from behind them. She's right. They both turned. Victoria's husband stood in the corridor, still in his tuxedo, looking tired and sad. Mr. Ashford, Brennan said quickly, "I apologize for the disturbance. I'm handling this." "You're not handling anything, Charles. You're bullying an employee who did nothing wrong." Richard looked at Janelle with something like respect. "Ms. Brooks, my wife was cruel to you tonight, unforgivably cruel, and you responded with grace and extraordinary talent. You have nothing to apologize for. Sir, your wife requested that my wife is drunk and embarrassed and lashing out, but she doesn't actually run this hotel. I do." Richard turned to Brennan. "Charles, you're not firing Ms. Brooks. You're not punishing her, and you're not going to make her work another shift here, because effective immediately, I'm offering her a different position." Janelle blinked. "Sir, we have a lounge on the 20th floor. Piano bar. Very elegant, very exclusive. The pianist we have now is retiring next month. I'd like to offer you the position. $60,000 a year, full benefits, flexible hours. You'd perform 4 nights a week, jazz, classical, whatever you want." "Does that interest you?" Janelle couldn't speak. That's Mr. Ashford. I'm honored, but Maestro Reed just offered me a scholarship. I'm going back to school." "Then do both," Richard said simply. "Play here on weekends while you study during the week. Or don't. The offer stands if you ever want it. Consider it my apology for my wife's behavior." He nodded to both of them and walked away. Brennan looked like he'd been hit by a truck. I don't... Ms. Brooks, I save it," Janelle said quietly. "I quit, Mr. Brennan. Effective immediately. You can mail my final paycheck." She walked past him back toward the ballroom, toward her new life. When Janelle returned to the ballroom, she was immediately surrounded by guests. Everyone wanted to talk to her. Everyone had questions. A woman in her 50s with elegant gray hair pressed a business card into Janelle's hand. "I'm Patricia Monroe. I run the Chicago Symphony's Education Outreach Program. We're always looking for talented instructors. Please call me." A younger man in his 30s introduced himself as a music producer. "I'd love to record you. That improvisation you did, I've never heard anything like it. We could do an album. Jazz, classical, fusion, whatever you want." Thomas stayed close to her side, running interference when people got too aggressive, making sure she wasn't overwhelmed. Maestro Reed appeared with a glass of water. "Drink. You need to hydrate." That was an intense performance. Janelle took the water gratefully. Her hands were still shaking. "Is this real?" she asked Reed quietly. "Or am I going to wake up tomorrow and realize this was all a dream? It's real. Very real. And it's just the beginning." A voice from across the room cut through the crowd. "Excuse me, everyone, if I could have your attention." They turned. Mrs. Pemberton, the older socialite who'd been sitting with Victoria earlier, stood at the front of the room. She was the kind of woman who commanded attention simply by existing. "I just want to say," Mrs. Pemberton began, her voice carrying clearly, "that what we witnessed tonight was extraordinary. But more than that, it was a reminder that talent and worth have nothing to do with someone's job or their bank account or their social status. Ms. Brooks served us drinks tonight, but she's also clearly one of the most gifted musicians many of us will ever hear, and I think we all owe her an apology." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "I know I do," Mrs. Pemberton continued. "I sat at that table and laughed when Victoria mocked her. I participated in cruelty, and I'm ashamed of that. Ms. Brooks, I'm sorry." Janelle felt tears prick at her eyes again. "Thank you." Other people began speaking up. "I'd like to donate to Maestro Reed's scholarship fund in Ms. Brooks's name. My daughter takes piano lessons. Could we hire you as her instructor? The Chicago Arts Council should feature you in our spring concert series." Thomas leaned close to Janelle. See, people want to help. You're not alone anymore." Janelle looked around at all these strangers, wealthy, powerful strangers, who an hour ago wouldn't have noticed her if she'd disappeared completely. Now they were offering her opportunities, resources, support. It was overwhelming, humbling, terrifying, but it was also hopeful. By midnight, the gala was winding down. Guests were leaving, offering final congratulations to Janelle as they went. The ballroom staff, Janelle's former co-workers, kept glancing at her with expressions ranging from awe to envy to genuine happiness. Carlos, the security guard, pulled her aside as she was preparing to leave. "That was something else, Janelle. Really something else. Thanks, Carlos. You gonna take that scholarship? Go back to school, I think so." "Yeah." He smiled. "Good. You deserve it. You always deserved better than this place." Janelle hugged him. "Thank you for always being kind." Thomas offered to drive her home. She'd missed the last train hours ago. They drove through Chicago's streets in comfortable silence, the city lights blurring past the windows. "You know what the crazy thing is?" Janelle said eventually. "This morning I woke up thinking my life was over. I was 3 days late on rent. I was about to lose my job. I had no prospects, no future, nothing. And tonight everything changed." Yeah, everything changed. She looked at Thomas. "Why did you help me?" "You didn't have to give me your card, or stand up for me, or any of it." Why? Thomas was quiet for a moment. "Because I know what it's like to give up on something you love. I wanted to be a painter, remember? And I let practical concerns and other people's expectations convince me to do something else. I'm happy with my life now, but sometimes I wonder who I could have been if I'd been braver. I didn't want that for you. Thank you. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. You did believe in yourself. You just forgot for a while. But the belief was always there. That's why you said yes when Victoria challenged you. That's why you sat down at that piano even though you were terrified." They pulled up outside Janelle's apartment building. It looked even more run down than usual, the contrast with the world she'd just left almost comical. "This is me," Janelle said. "Can I ask you something?" Thomas said. "What are you going to tell Maya?" Janelle smiled a real smile full of hope and possibility. "I'm going to tell her that Mommy played piano tonight, and that we're going to be okay. More than okay. Good. That's good." Janelle got out of the car, then paused. "Thomas, would you maybe want to get coffee sometime when things settle down?" His face lit up. "I'd like that. I'd like that a lot." She went inside, climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, and quietly opened the door. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was asleep on the couch. She'd been watching Maya. Janelle paid her for the babysitting, thanked her, and walked into the bedroom. Maya was asleep, curled up with her stuffed elephant. She looked so small, so innocent, so full of potential. Janelle sat on the edge of the bed and gently brushed her daughter's hair back from her face. "Hey, baby," she whispered. "Mama has something to tell you. Tomorrow, when you wake up, everything's going to be different. Everything's going to be better. Because Mama remembered something tonight. She remembered that dreams don't die just because life gets hard. They just wait. And sometimes when you're brave enough to reach for them again, they come back even more beautiful than before." Maya stirred, but didn't wake. Janelle kissed her forehead and whispered, "And soon, my love. You're going to get those piano lessons, I promise." The lights in Millennium Park's Pritzker Pavilion dimmed. 4,000 people sat in the audience, from wealthy patrons in the covered seating to families on blankets on the great lawn. The summer evening was perfect warm, but not hot, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of Lake Michigan. Backstage, Janelle Brooks stood in a long black gown, her hair elegantly styled, her hands clasped in front of her. She wasn't nervous. Not anymore. She'd performed dozens of concerts over the past year and a half, had recorded an album that was getting serious airplay on NPR, had been featured in the Chicago Tribune's arts section under the headline, "From Waitress to Virtuoso, the Janelle Brooks Story." But tonight was special. Tonight was homecoming. Mama Maya ran up dressed in her own fancy dress, her hair in 2 neat puffs tied with purple ribbons. "Mama." "There's so many people," Janelle knelt down. "I know, baby. Are you nervous?" "No, I'm excited. I practiced so much, I know you did. You're going to be amazing." Thomas appeared looking handsome in a dark suit. Over the past 18 months, he and Janelle had become, well, they were figuring out what they were becoming. But it was good. Steady. Real. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." The concert coordinator gave her the signal. Janelle took Maya's hand, and together they walked onto the stage. The applause was thunderous. Janelle smiled and waved, then sat at the grand piano positioned at center stage. Maya sat beside her on the bench, her little legs swinging above the pedals. Janelle leaned toward the microphone. "Good evening, Chicago. Thank you all so much for being here. 18 months ago, I was working as a waitress, convinced that my dreams were dead. Then I got a second chance. Tonight I want to pay that forward." She gestured to the side of the stage. "This concert is a fundraiser for the Chicago Community Music School, which provides free music education to children who otherwise couldn't afford it. Because I believe every child deserves the chance to experience the transformative power of music, regardless of their background, regardless of their circumstances. Every child deserves to dream." More applause. Tonight I have a very special co-performer, my daughter Maya Brooks, who's been studying piano for the past year. "Maya, you want to say hi?" Maya leaned toward the microphone. "Hi, everybody." Laughter rippled through the audience. "We're going to start with a piece we arranged together," Janelle said. "It's a little bit classical, a little bit jazz, and a lot of love. This is for my grandmother who first put my hands on a piano, and for my mother who sacrificed everything so I could pursue music, and for everyone who's ever been told they're not good enough, not worthy enough, not enough, period. You are enough. You've always been enough." She placed her hands on the keys. Maya placed her small hands beside them, and together, mother and daughter began to play. The music that flowed from the piano was pure joy. Janelle carried the complex parts, while Maya played a simpler melody, but the two parts wove together perfectly, creating something greater than either could have made alone. In the audience, Maestro Daniel Reed sat with tears in his eyes. Beside him, Patricia Monroe from the Chicago Symphony smiled. Thomas watched with obvious pride. And scattered throughout the crowd were dozens of people who'd been at that charity gala 18 months ago, who'd witnessed the moment everything changed. Mrs. Pemberton had donated $50,000 to the community music school in Janelle's name. Richard Ashford had matched it. Others had followed suit. Victoria Ashford was not in attendance. She'd moved to New York shortly after the gala, her reputation in Chicago permanently damaged. The divorce from Richard had been quiet, but expensive. She'd gotten a settlement. He'd gotten his freedom. But Janelle didn't think about Victoria anymore. Didn't think about that night as a moment of triumph over her enemies. Instead, she thought about it as the night she remembered who she was. The performance ended. Janelle and Maya played the final chord together, their hands lifting from the keys in perfect synchronization. The applause was overwhelming. People stood, cheered, called for an encore. Maya looked up at her mother, her eyes shining. "Did we do good?" "We did perfect, baby. Absolutely perfect." They stood and took their bows. The applause continued rolling over them in waves. Backstage after the concert, reporters wanted interviews. Audience members wanted autographs. Everyone wanted a piece of Janelle's story. But she managed to find a quiet moment alone with Maya and Thomas. "I'm proud of you," Thomas said, kissing her temple. "Both of you." "We're proud of us too," Janelle said, pulling Maya close. Maya looked up at her. "Mama, am I going to be a real pianist like you someday? Baby, you already are a real pianist. But if you mean am I going to push you to make this your career? No. I want you to choose what makes you happy. Music, art, science, whatever. I just want you to know that you get to choose. You don't have to let anyone else decide who you're supposed to be. I think I want to be like you." Janelle's throat tightened. "Then be brave. Be kind. Work hard. And never let anyone convince you you're not good enough. Deal, deal." Janelle Brooks's story didn't end at that charity gala. It didn't even end at the Millennium Park concert. It's still ongoing, still being written every time she sits down at a piano, every time she teaches a student, every time she looks at her daughter and sees the future they're building together. But if you ask Janelle what she learned from it all, she'll tell you this: dreams don't have expiration dates. You can be 18 or 28 or 48 or 68. It's never too late to become who you were meant to be. And sometimes the worst moments, the moments of humiliation and desperation and defeat, are actually doorways. Doorways to something better, something truer, something more authentic than anything you could have planned. Victoria Ashford meant to destroy Janelle that night, meant to put her in her place, meant to prove that some people are meant to serve and some people are meant to be served. Instead, she gave Janelle a stage. And Janelle used that stage to remind everyone watching that talent doesn't care about your job title, that worth isn't determined by your bank account, that genius can be found in the most unexpected places if you're willing to look, if you're willing to listen. Because sometimes the person you dismiss as just a waitress is actually a virtuoso, a prodigy, someone with the power to make an entire room fall silent with nothing but music and courage. Sometimes the person you underestimate is exactly the person who will change your life. And sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you, or one moment of believing in yourself, to transform everything. Janelle Brooks touched a piano on a Tuesday night in November and remembered who she was. Who are you forgetting to be? What dream are you waiting to reclaim? Because it's not too late. It's never too late. All you have to do is be brave enough to place your hands on the keys and play.